Welcome. Today we're going to install a diesel heater in a Troopy. It's a 2 kilowatt heater. We've also upgraded the fuel pump. The original fuel pump here, they're quite noisy, so we've upgraded that. I've got this it's a marine exhaust bracket for a diesel heater. I've got it changed to 90 degrees on the end there. We'll show you how that's going to fit in. The original one's at 45 degrees. I couldn't quite get that to fit in like that. Also had this extension lead cover for the pump to fit into. So I'll mount that in there with the pump. Also have a little fuel shut-off valve to put in the fuel line. Okay, I already mounted the vent. On the 2 kilowatt, the vents are 60 millimeters. The tube to it is 60 millimeters. On the larger ones, they're 75 millimeters. But the heater's going to fit down in the side panel there. Okay, we're going to chop those brackets off down in the side there. And then hopefully the heater's going to fit in there. I've got to fabricate a bit of a bracket for it to sit on, and get the exhaust mounted down underneath. Where the exhaust pipe is, just that little square flat bit area up there. We'll get a hole through there and get that little exhaust bracket mounted so I can come through in that panel there. Going to fab up this back bracket. It was one I just bought, but it's not the right thing. We'll make a couple of bends in it. That's where our exhaust sits on down. Fabbed up that bracket. Heater sits in there. The bracket's bent. The heater sits on top of it there with the exhaust and the air inlet. These little brackets, these stainless steel ones, I'd get some of these just a tip, 23 to 25 millimeter for the exhaust. They fit on there a lot better and can get tight. The bracket comes up around behind the heater there. Got a bit of threaded rod coming through there. I've got another piece to go in there. And then the fuel, I plumbed it into, that's the return line, the smaller line to the auxiliary tank. I'll put a T-piece in there. That's the pressure line, which is a bit larger. I'll also put a T-piece in there, and that little fuel tap up in there, just in case there's anything goes wrong, I guess, so we can turn that off. The exhaust, the muffler goes up on a little adapter into it. It just comes down below there. Also, these little rubber grommets for the end of the chair legs, they fit over there. I thought that's handy to put one of those on there in case we do any water crossings or whatever. Just make sure we take it off before we use the heater. We'll give it a bit of a test. It's remote control, so it's a matter of just hitting that. It'll start going through its little sequence. It'll flash those little arrows up for the intake and the exhaust. Once it's up and running, temperature was up around about 100 degrees out of the vent there. And then the remote to turn it off, so you just press the off. It'll go through its little sequence to shut the heater down and clear it out. And then we'll just mount up that cover there for the fuel pump to sit in. Holds it all in place there. Got an extra switch in there just so I can turn the power supply off to the heater. And there's the exhaust coming down. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave any suggestions or comments.